Welcome to Get Serious, where at Serious Land Capital, we have successfully funded over $6 million worth of vacant land deals with industry-leading 41% operating margins. So today I wanted to follow up with some more takeaways from that AI Mastermind. I was in Nosara, Costa Rica with Kellen Faulkner and a number of other higher level entrepreneurs. I'm not just real estate focused or land focused, kind of grab bag. There's definitely some other real estate folks there. And on my previous podcast, I had gone over more of the, just kind of endless optimism about how well positioned we are, especially if, you're from a developed country or the US and so forth. And, how there's infinite opportunity, especially within the real estate game, developing countries or not. So that was one piece of the conversation here. The next piece I wanted to dive in a little bit more for the takeaways from the actual day itself, which very constrained period of time. Like we only had a roughly full day together there. So, jam-packed roughly 20 or so folks. And yeah, we definitely went, it was semi hot seat session, semi presentation. Sometimes like these are new events here. I've been around to so many, like you got to kind of feel it out for what type of format might be more consistent going forward here. But these were all folks who we had met through Kellen's Uncommon Business program, and so a lot of us were more familiar with each other from an online perspective, just getting in person here. And we could dive into some of the AI tactical takeaways here, of which there are endless, right? But I really wanted to center in more on what, again, I see as common themes and blockers for continued entrepreneurial and small business development. And I've personally struggled with all of these and still do going forward here. So these serve as reminders for myself, but I think they're just so common to pretty much, again, any entrepreneurial journey, that it just bears worth touching on some of these so that you can be more aware and be able to push past blockers or plateaus or what have you that might be preventing the growth that is definitely possible for you and your company's future. And again, I always have to through a caveat that appreciate all the transparency and the level of vulnerability of folks who are at this in-person event. It always makes it a lot better for yourself and everybody attending when we can be open books and actually just mention what we're struggling with and so forth. Because again, if you just mention we're just killing it, everything's going great, okay, fine, if that is the case, but no one's going to be jumping up to necessarily help you. I don't know a business owner out there that doesn't have at least one problem that could use some input from somebody else. So that's always food for thought from that perspective. So with all of that in mind here, some of the common themes that I was seeing, one piece, which again is probably the biggest issue that hit me over this past year and much of the previous year prior to that, much of 2024 and 2025, is just the focus piece. I've remarked a number of times about, back and forth between Landpricer, which was our AI land pricing software tool. I mean, no surprise from the name. Balancing that with growing Serious Land Capital. And as I've discussed a number of times, I had backed out of the core day-to-day operating role of Landpricer to focus full-time on Serious Land Capital. And it was just a game-changing from that perspective. We're already seeing significant returns just from Serious Land Capital, and we can barely keep up with the path to growth that we anticipate within this own business. So many of these other entrepreneurs there, again, so many folks who want to start their own business are inherently more attracted to shiny objects and seeing the potential for solving different problems. Like there's a reason you wanted to go off and do things on your own or with a smaller set of partners in some capacity. And so this focus piece is probably the number one biggest blocker for entrepreneurs not getting to where they need to go. Like I just see this so often, and there were just so many folks at this particular mastermind in different life stages and so forth. I mean, we probably had age gap from the youngest to the oldest of at least 30 years, different career experiences and so forth. But it's still so common throughout, no matter where you are in your career path. The earlier you can catch it, the better. Obviously, you'll have, hopefully more time, knock on wood, but it's never too late to refocus and double down on what's actually working and your core constraint to solve for your business. And again, I feel I can comment about this with a significant amount of clarity, just because like I've paid the price for lack of focus, both monetarily, um, tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands, in lost opportunity cost, as well as time lost for not staying focused on my actual core business and priority. And so, like, it's so easy now for me to recognize those patterns and see it and try to, urge folks, hey, like, it's your life, do whatever you want. Of course, there's no rules in business, but just keep this in mind, like the focus piece. If you're going to be trying to run this one particular project, or you're trying to keep too many parties happy, and maybe your spouse isn't as supportive of what you're doing, they want more consistent income coming in that are from these consulting clients that might not be as reliable long term, but you see a better vision for much more explosive growth within your particular company, or really shifting the entire product line to let go of those current clients. Like, if you try to run a pathway forward with both of those in parallel, inevitably you're going to disappoint everybody involved. So it's like, how do you um, actually develop the confidence to choose and stick with that key area that you need to focus on, whether it's a particular area within one business or just going all in on one particular business when you might have a couple of different ones, or maybe even a few different ones that you're trying to throw out there and see which one sticks the most. But more than likely, the one that will stick the most is the one that you focus on entirely. Always to keep that in mind, and that tangents into that confidence piece. And again, I think you can hear it in my voice, and I practice a lot from just the charisma and the inevitability that I had spoke about the other week here, that we feel so we're like a heat-seeking missile toward our goal as a company here, that gives us a lot of confidence because we are focused, because we get the reps in every single day, and we know we have the relationships and the capital and everything that we can put in place to continue to have success in this industry regardless of market conditions, as long as we continue to show up and put the work in. But at that mastermind, like, I saw a lot of kind of shaky confidence. And again, you can take some of those scenarios where different people in your life are wanting different things for you, or you haven't necessarily seen some of the returns on the offers you're making to the market, or maybe you're tinkering too much with a particular service or product before releasing it into the wild. Again, all mistakes that I've personally made, and still are in the midst of making here and there. And the confidence piece was not something that always came easy to me either. And there's still plenty of, like, I think just on a day-to-day basis, your confidence is going to be shaken in some form or fashion. But right now, like, we're in a pretty confident state of mind, just given how focused we are. Uh, and, as an aside, like, it can be thrown into, we have to consider all of the other variables within the equation as well. And within, Callan's Uncommon Business, like, there are, naturally more female entrepreneurs. You know, females tends to attract like, right? So, more male, leaders, or, starters of various coaching programs and so forth are probably going to attract more males, and vice versa. So, there were more female entrepreneurs there, and, inherently within the genders, like, this isn't heresy to say, I mean, you can look within your own experience and various data and so forth, is that, from a confidence perspective and boldness and courage, men tend to be higher in those categories than women. So I'm very careful shaping that phrasing. It's not always the case, but often that is a particular case, especially when it comes to who's the primary breadwinner within households and how does your spouse fit in and so forth. So I'm never sure exactly what everybody's precise interpersonal relationships are. Like, no one can know, right? You can hardly keep a firm handle on your own if you're in one. So like, I can only speak from my own experience, but I always throw that caveat out there as an important consideration of like, you have to understand what are the gender roles, or what's the expectation within somebody's unique relationship that they have within their core family setup or their partner and so forth, and that gender is not the whole thing, but it is a piece. So having that confidence to just say, hey, we're scrapping, I'm going to leave my job, or we're going to just go all in on this particular pathway. To me, that comes a bit easier now, and also from my upbringing and environment and so forth. But a lot of other female entrepreneurs, that might not necessarily be the case. And I saw that more there at this particular mastermind. And so again, I say this with all the respect in the world, but like those are factors that I think have to be considered, and that it can help when somebody, that's outside of your, or has a financial interest in yourself and so forth, can actually cut through and help encourage you to have the belief to be more confident in your own capabilities to reach for more and actually make those decisions that are going to lead to the right path. Because again, this was not something that always came easy to me. There's plenty of times where I just did not have much confidence in my life or various parts of my life, and other mentors who really believed in me more than I believed in myself. And I've talked about this at length as well too, and still continue to serve that role for me in my own life. So that's really the point that I wanted to come across here, is that sometimes you almost need somebody else's permission to enable the inherent confidence that you have within yourself. And again, perhaps this is even more important for female operators on average. So that was something else noted there too. And then another piece here is that there's still so many just pure solo operators, and it's possible to just grind yourself out to building $1 million business, just on your own, just through grit itself. But really, to get larger than that in most industries, like you need to be able to start delegating and building a team and building systems and processes to put in place so that you can become more strategic and move bigger and bigger blocks into the right places. And so having the capacity, both from a skill set standpoint as well as the monetary capacity to actually hire an exec assistant or VA or what have you, somebody who can offload just a little bit on your plate and ideally more and more and more, it is just such a critical skill here. And, something that I think a lot of people take for granted, but, don't necessarily fully understand how common this situation is, where you just have these solopreneurs who are just doing everything for their business and hit a wall for years, potentially decades on end, because they simply are at capacity and don't have room for their own selves to grow, nor can their business, since they're effectively their entire business. So that's another keynote as well to never lose sight of. Then two other pieces here, and this one also goes back to what I tangentially mentioned during the focus piece, is like you have to make an offer. Also from the confidence piece again here too, is that the market is the ultimate mirror. It will tell you ruthlessly whether you are onto something or not, and you really can't hide from it. I mean, look at within the real estate business. I mean, you can underwrite a deal to death, and we do that all the time. And sometimes, like, the market is just absolutely just lands a haymaker across you that you just don't see coming, just blindsided, KO'd. But the market determines what a property and what your offer is worth. Some folks might have different service offerings, or coaching or what have you, consulting opportunities, and everybody has some inherent, self-protection mechanisms built in. And so like the longer you delay making an offer to the market, the longer you can protect yourself from the inevitable pain that's going to happen, because pain's going to happen regardless. Some people are going to buy, a ton of people won't. Most people are never going to buy. So rejection is just part of the game, especially again in the land space. I mean, on the buy and the sell side, just we operate with just such a tiny sliver of seller and buyer pools to even operate with that. The products that we're selling tend to be like really large deals here. But you just have to get through so many no's and so many people who are just rejecting your offer day in and day out. But at the end of the day, like you can't make your business run without making an offer in the first place. So you have to get something out there. You've got to get the feedback, and then grow and evolve accordingly. Once you have your offer out there. So just figure it out, get in the game. And as I was remarking to somebody at that particular mastermind, is that the offer really is. I wish I had the core phrasing here, and I feel like I'm I'm missing the succinctness of the statement, as it were. But it's like the once you figure out the offer, the rest is just logistics. Like that is really the core of business. Got to figure out the offer. And again, real estate, it's more tangible, right? It's obviously real property. So like we know what our offers are, but plenty of other businesses, it can be anything you can possibly imagine. But figure that out first. All the rest of it is just the rails that it's going to run on. And the last piece is, so core to my heart, and where I feel perhaps our strongest stance is, well, perhaps our strongest, asset, even within our company, is just the longevity piece. Are you able to just show up day in and day out and continue to work effectively within your business? And, I've had the privilege to meet so many high level operators of various levels of success and so forth. And many operators are not necessarily deeply in love with their business. That's something Hormozy always mentions too. It's like the biggest risk to the business is the founder falling out of love with it. Like if you're not going to show up with the enthusiasm to continue to grow, and let's assume you get your bases covered and you're starting to make real money and so forth. Like, are you guys still going to continue to show up and continue to grow? The answer is that a lot of folks that roadway ends a lot sooner than they might expect internally, or what other people might necessarily think of them. Because if you really ask folks, hey, what is your dream business, or what are you doing, like is this something you want to be doing the rest of your life, I'd say less than half the far less than half the folks that I speak to, and I'm not always having these conversations, like are like, yeah, I'm just like dead set. Because again, it's the focus piece. There's always a shiny object, and it's like, and that's a scary thought too. It's like, our life is so short. It's like, whoa, am I really going to just cut off all variety and like just work on this one thing for the remainder of my life and feel like I've actually filled my cup in the right way? Like that is a scary thing to consider. And that's why I think a lot of folks will hedge themselves like, yeah, I can do this for a while and maybe get an exit out of it, or just have it passively run on the side, and then I can do this, which again is fine. There's no rules in business here, but I think it's such an advantage when you can have the longer term horizon. Again, the longer your time horizon, the more likely it is that you're gonna win, just because you can operate longer than everybody else, and be able to take longer term risks and growth pathways within the particular business, and get more reps than everybody else, continue to learn. And so there's really only a handful of folks that are like, yeah, we're that want to be doing this particular business, again, whether it's in land or whatever you're in. And within the land space, like I share that 50-year vision of what we're trying to do with Serious Land Capital. And we're really, only capped at lifespan. If we live, medicine gets better and AI and so forth, like turn the 50 years into, 60, 70, whatever. I'm really, just being more realistic with current human lifespans here, but that's, kind of an arbitrary number at the moment. To me, I just feel like There's just infinite opportunity within this particular space. Real estate, you can play at the highest levels possible within just business as a whole. So like there's literally infinite opportunity, like I talked about the previous podcast. And to me, that's very attractive to do. Infinite amounts of growth and learning that can happen. But it's possible a lot of folks might not necessarily see that potential, or like they've seen enough where it just doesn't scratch the itch that they're looking for. Or maybe they're just more comfortable, like, hey, I want to do this for 5-10 years, whatever, and then do something else and something else. But if you choose to do that, there's a decent chance you're going to cap the total amount of return that you can get from going all in on one particular venture. So that is just a piece I want to leave you with is, what are you thinking about your actual business? Can you go for the rest of your life, or is it going to be more temporary? And if it is more temporary, should you just go do something that you're going to be able to do for the rest of your life sooner rather than later? So with all of that in mind, Serious Land Capital, Capital to get land funding for your next deal here, $50K minimum purchase price. Subscribe and share, everybody. Take care. Talk to you next time. Bye.